Hey YouTube, just about halfway through the timing belt job on this Volvo V40 you see here. I'm just going to take this opportunity to film a little, I don't know, what should I call it, maybe a little review of this car, or maybe a little, might sort of come together a bit of a sort of story of our ownership and kind of a farewell really, because we've had these cars an awful long time now. The first one we had was a 98 model. This is a 2002. My father actually bought the 98 model new August of 1997. It was a shared car between my parents. I borrowed it on occasion. As my father's health declined, he sort of drove it less and less and less, and eventually the keys were handed over to my mother full time when he gave up driving. That car was absolutely amazing really for reliability. We had it 15 and a half years from new, and granted it did only cover I think about 45,000 miles, but it never broke down in that whole time, which was outstanding. Only very minor issue we ever had with it was very, very early on in ownership. We're talking a matter of months, if not weeks, that we can't remember whether it stopped working or it just actually never worked, but we discovered the horn wasn't working. Took it back to the dealer, they fixed it, one visit, and never broke again. Suspicion is it was the same problem you kind of get with the P80 cars, where you have to tighten one screw of the airbag down before the other, and maybe that was misassembled or whatever, but that was it. Obviously lots of service parts over the years, tyres, brakes, so on and so forth. I think we had maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 batteries on it maybe. I think that was mostly down to lack of use in the latter years. But unfortunately that car was actually totaled right outside this workshop, which was absolutely freak accident. It was parked on the driveway as normal, unattended. It was a very elderly lady. There's no easy way to say this, not to be harsh or impolite, but she was beyond the point where she should have hung the keys up for good. But she lost control of her car coming round the corner outside, and the explanation was that during the point she lost control, she got the brake and the accelerator confused, and accelerated full throttle into the back of the car. And at the time the car was valued at about £1,000, and it did about £9,000 worth of damage. So it was obviously end of the road for that one. And her car, which was nearly new, was beyond economic repair as well. So that one went to car heaven as well. But my mother at the time was very upset at the loss of a car, and it absolutely insistent to have the same car again. So this was the best I could do at the time. This is it's a 2002 model. It's a 2-litre automatic, same as the previous one. The previous one was a very basic specification. This one is fully loaded, more or less, as far as I can tell. Not that ever interested or bothered my mother in any way. This one has been a little bit more troublesome than the previous one, but not by an awful lot. It's never broken down, it's never failed to complete a journey under its own power, not left anyone stranded, but we have had persistent problems with the fuel gauge. It was never accurate. Obviously didn't spot it at the time I bought the car, but we very quickly discovered, you know, you could fill it up, it would read full. You drive about 50 miles and it would read practically empty, that sort of thing going on. Did a few checks, nothing particularly obviously wrong with the wiring. It eventually gave up altogether. At that point it was pretty easy to diagnose that the sending unit in the tank had failed. Fitted a new one, genuine Volvo part, and not only did it start working again, but it restored the accuracy. That worked, you know, flawlessly for about 3 years, and then just all of a sudden gave up working again. So it's been now about 2 years without a working fuel gauge. Unfortunately, about 18 months ago, my mother passed away, and you know, the car, it was sort of used as my spare car for a little while, but has been sitting for, you know, just over a year. And you know, neither me or my father have had the inclination to get that looked at or to do anything about it, but basically have decided to sell this car on. I've got 2 Volvos of my own, so it's basically surplus to my needs. No other real problems, you know, with the car. I think we had to replace a couple of minor suspension components, and I think maybe the rear and middle exhaust, because they were corroding around the joint. Well, that's all I can remember in about the 6 years we've owned this car. What I can say is that this one, I think the phrase is it's a phase 2 car, and it does drive a hell of a lot better than the early vehicles. It is a different, although I said they were both 2-litre automatics, this is the second version of the 2-litre, and it has a variable valve timing on the intake cam, and the effect of that is to give it quite a bit more low down torque, so it takes off quite a bit better than the old one, and it's got more usable torque. It rides on the motorway so much better than the first one ever did, and you know, the handling is sharper. I do quite like the way it drives, but it's not 100% to my taste. It's a firm ride. I don't mean to say it's in any way uncomfortable, but it's kind of very sporty feeling kind of ride and handling, and the way it drives. I much prefer my 850 over there. That's a bit more of a, again, that's a firm ride, but that's you know, it feels like a really big solid car the way it goes down the road. That's the kind of thing I prefer. So you know, this one, it's went through an MOT without issue. I'm going to do the timing belt on it before I sell it on, and be going down the road very shortly. In fact, by the time I get around to uploading this video, it will have already gone. Farewell V40.